Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Mother's Basement today. We're checking out Rick and Morty the anime. Hurts my brain. I was kind of excited to hear that there was a Rick and Morty anime coming out, but I was also a little bit intrigued and like, right, I will wait. And as soon as the first episode came out, I just saw nothing but complaints all over the board, and the complaints seem to be very consistent. The question is, who is this for? Who asked for this? Why is this a thing? I've not watched it myself. Because of that, but I thought it'd be cool to check out like Jeff going into potentially like, why it is that bad. Give me some examples of what people are talking about. Yeah, I love Rick and Morty, man. I love it. But yeah, let's get into it.
Of all the anime adaptations of Western IP that seem to be so in vogue lately, Rick and Morty the anime might just be the one I was looking forward to the most.
Okay.
Emphasis on was. When Adult Swim started dropping those first experimental anime shorts a few years ago, they vastly expanded my view of what this raunchy sci-fi sitcom could be.
Oh yeah, that was really freaking cool.
Not unlike
Oh, Star Wars Visions is a thing I could watch now. I've got Disney Plus. Oh,
what Star Wars Visions did, and not unlike Star Wars Visions, the prospect of one of their directors expanding those ideas into a full series seemed pretty damn promising at the time, artistically and commercially. I mean, I don't know if I'd have picked Takashi Sano to do it. Personally, I preferred the great yokai battle of Akihabara and Shogun and Samurai to either of his shorts, but Rick and Morty vs. Genocider did get a very respectable 10 million views, so I can certainly see why Cartoon Network's execs saw potential there. But then...
yeah, they just looked at the numbers and went, okay, just do it again.
His next short, Summer Meets God, only got 2 million views just a year later, and a year after that, Shogun and Samurai Part 2 couldn't even crack 400K.
Oh.
Also, the cartoon fell off so hard in Japan they stopped dubbing it altogether after season 4, so I also see why maybe some of those same executives, or possibly their replacements from the Warner Bros. Discovery merger, might have started to get cold feet on the whole thing and maybe scale the budget back a bit to the point they couldn't even afford the main series B-list celebrity voice cast anymore.
Damn. Like, I have heard that like the animation isn't even great either. Like,
Hey everybody, guess who just got done baking a space berry cake?
Or maybe Jason DeMarco isn't being forced to cover for the Zaslav regime. That dub really was an intentional choice to differentiate the anime from the originals, like they keep saying in interviews. And the plan all along was to do the big action set pieces as these erratic, janky slideshows that people keep making fun of on Twitter as a viral marketing strategy or something. Who's to say? Either scenario is equally plausible. But regardless of the reason, what we've ended up with is a show that doesn't sound like Rick and Morty, isn't funny like Rick and Morty, does actually look like Rick and Morty, kind of, in an uncanny acquired taste sort of way that would really benefit from a higher frame count, and has left just about everyone who's watched it confused, disappointed, and generally baffled as to what the hell they were even thinking. Well, that's exactly what I made this video, and watched every episode that's out so far twice in English and Japanese to figure out. Which cost me $40 whole on iTunes, by the way, because it's not streaming in Japan or Canada at all. But first, I'm thrilled to tell you this video is sponsored by Capcom and the Ace Attorney Investigations Collection. A game that personally I've been hoping to see for over a decade, because Ace Attorney Investigations 2 never came out in English, and this means I can finally complete my collection of one of my all-time favorite series. Ace Attorney Investigations 1 and 2 are spin-offs of the mainline game, starring Phoenix Wright's childhood friend turned edgy rival, pro prosecutor Miles Edgeworth. Instead of defending the falsely accused in court, this time you'll be investigating crime scenes, gathering evidence, and interrogating suspects to accuse the right guy the first time for once, which you'll do from a more conventional third-person point-and-click adventure perspective, in contrast to the mainline game's visual novel hybrid design. That gameplay's been given a very spiffy new coat of HD paint for this collection, with redrawn art directed by the original game's character designer. But you can also choose to play with the original, gorgeously animated sprite art, so that full experience we never got in the West is perfectly preserved here for those who've always wanted it. On top of that, like the other Ace Attorney collections, this game comes packed with bonus features like an illustration gallery, OST player, and animation viewer, plus great quality of life features including chapter select and story mode, which plays the whole game for you like a movie. It makes me so happy to see Capcom showing these games and their fans all the love they deserve. And if you want to show them some love back by buying this wonderful collection, or just find out more, all you gotta do is click the link in the doobly-doo. To figure out if Rick and Morty the Anime's story has any redeeming qualities, we first need to figure out what that story even is, which is way harder than you might expect, because on top of jumping all over dimensions like Rick and Morty normally do, their anime counterparts are also jumping all over time, Memento style.
Oh no, it's getting even more complicated.
Don't someone mess with time. You don't know with time. I will mess with time.
I will mess with time.
Yeah, I didn't watch this thing twice for my own health. The show has multiple non-linear plot lines crisscrossing and folding in on each other in ways that almost demand a second viewing just to make basic sense of it all. Which is a pretty darn big ask from a show most people don't even enjoy watching the first time, and so I've taken the liberty of laying the timeline out into something a little more comprehensible so you don't have to. The first episode cold opens on a Federation battle cruiser hovering above a planet full of absurdly generic aliens who are apparently pacifists, meaning the whole planet's just gonna do nothing but wait to get blown up by a big scary space laser. Lucky for them, sexy Twin Tails midriff tattoo Summer Smith is here to make me deeply uncomfortable with that head on that body, and also hack the bad guy's spaceship after she's done eavesdropping on these two bug alien fascists' gay relationship drama. The one guy thinks his boyfriend's cheating on him with quote-unquote some hussy who had the keys to his room, while the boyfriend insists she just picked him up and he's just being paranoid. And normally I wouldn't fixate on something this trivial, but somehow that's the most coherent running subplot in the entire anime so far.
So that was what's stuck in your brain. Like nothing else is making sense except for this random conversation these two guys had. Oh no.
Uncomfortably sexy Space Summer, I assume we'll get back to her at some point eventually, but that point has yet to arrive as of episode 4, and this scene doesn't really seem to have anything to do with anything that happens in the entire rest of the episode it's in. Though I suspect it might be close to the end point of the Mullet Rick timeline, which will make sense to you in a sec. After the credits, which, credit where it's due, is a pretty fucking awesome little sequence with a banging theme song and easily the best animation in the whole show.
Oh, damn.
Pulled open
The budget went into the opening.
on the Federation SWAT team as it raids the Smith C-131 home to capture good old Rick C-137, while Jerry absolutely bombs with a comedy routine about repeatedly clogging the toilet. According to the wiki, Rick just got back from his little adventure tryst with the anime crows and also the destruction of the entire Citadel at the end of Season 5, meaning that portal guns don't work right now, even though later in Episode 2 a bunch of space rebels attack the Federation through what are clearly portal gun portals, but we've barely even started with the time travel bullshit yet, and if I try to fit
So they are trying to make it, like, within the Rick and Morty cartoon timeline as well, but
into the cartoon continuity on top of all that, my head might actually explode. Speaking of exploding, that's exactly what the Rick hollow dummy that the Federation just captured is rigged to do, while the real one is busy chilling in his underwear in this random rainbow wormhole pocket dimension for some reason that possibly has to do with this entropy reversing doohickey that makes stuff go back in time, which the Federation thinks is a bomb he invented, but actually it's just a thing he picked up somewhere. To keep Morty distracted while all that's going on, Rick built him a cool laser space samurai VR game thing, but while he's playing that, Mortys from other dimensions start showing up in the simulation somehow, and we follow 4 different ones of them in parallel storylines, some of which also involve like time travel, like that wasn't confusing enough already.
No, there's too much going on.
Scary monster by, respectively, a cute girl with perpetually windswept anime hair everywhere who wants to make out with him, a guy named Frank in power armor who also wants to make out with him, nobody, that Morty just gets eaten, and a Rick with perpetually windswept anime hair from a dimension where Morty's already dead.
Never thought I'd actually see you again.
Why would he think that? There are infinite
Yeah.
replacement Mortys.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing. There's so. Oh my
That's
god.
like the whole premise of Rick and
Rick and
Morty.
Morty.
After the whole monster thing goes down, the game just sort of randomly turns into Roy, and all the Mortys start living out different simulated lives simultaneously. The one who was saved by Frank goes to the sauna with him, and they have kind of a moment where he's like, nah, I think you'd look better without that power armor. And then later, when he's in a loveless trailer park marriage, Frank shows up again and he's like, hey, Morty, I don't have the armor anymore. Then the one who met the anime girl somehow becomes Charles Foster Kane and dies while saying her name instead of Rosebud. It's L, by the way. And then another Morty, who also remembers making out with her, I guess, bumps into her at a lake, but then right before they can make out again, he gets yoinked out of the simulation by Summer, which she's got to do because the wormhole that Rick's in just started collapsing, and now it's filling up with other Ricks from other dimensions that make him impossible to track, and Morty doesn't actually help with that in any way or even get any screen time in the next episode besides a single brief cutaway to him crying. And the third episode's whole story is about him going back into the game world for his anime girlfriend again, only to be yoinked out by Summer again and told that now they've got to go save Grandpa again, which isn't
Boring, repetitive story beats. Oh.
actually like a plot hole. It's just very weirdly redundant. Like, why yoink him out at all if he's not going to do literally anything in the real world between dives? They could have just left him in there. In the middle of the second dive, he runs into Mullet Rick again, who explains the backstory that led up to the death of his Morty, henceforth referred to as Space Morty. See, it turns out he became a famous space resistance hero, wanted across the galaxy by the Federation, kind of like Space Beth from the cartoon, except I don't think there's a clone Morty back on his Earth, and also everyone just calls him Space Morty, including people from space, which is it's a Japanese dub, you know. Don't think too much about that. Also, instead of doing the rebel thing as a lone badass, Space Morty teams up with L, who's actually an alien, the last of her kind, from a species that can remember the future but can't change it, maybe. It's honestly very unclear. And apparently, at some point in that as yet unexplored, as of episode 4 past future, Space Morty got, or will get got, which leads Mullet Rick to use that entropy MacGuffin to reset his universe to back when Space Morty was an Earth baby, with plans to then abandon his family so that Morty won't grow up to get got again this time around, which means the future can be changed,
yeah.
What? Which is where Rick C-137 catches up with him back in episode 2 and immediately gets pissed at him for even thinking about leaving his family, which is really weird because the Rickest Rick's entire deal is that he absolutely does not give a single shit how other Ricks live their lives, let alone care enough
look after
to
number
fist
one,
fight
yeah.
another one over his choices, though I am willing to give that a pass for Rule of Cool because it does lead to this big, crazy action scene where, due to the aforementioned MacGuffin, every time they punch each other, they jump to a different parallel universe, which would have been even cooler if they hadn't animated it in PowerPoint.
Oh, it kind of reminds me. I've just recently watched the Marvels. I've caught up with Marvel so much now, like that Disney Plus, and I like the whole, like, every time one of them activated their powers, it would switch them around and that did some cool stuff.
I'm the only reason you even have a place to exist right now. You should think twice before going ballistic on me.
It also sets up one of the only funny jokes in the entire series so far, where they leave the equivalent of their mass in energy behind as this mini sun floating over the Smith house that the president immediately goes to war with every other country over, but then when the Ricks get back, it immediately disappears and everyone's left feeling very silly. If you ignore the janky-ass timing and delivery, that almost seems like a joke the cartoon would have made. That battle plays out in parallel with a B-plot about Space Beth infiltrating that Federation ship that's got the holodummy on it to steal some data or something, which leads to her getting ambushed and then having to fight Tammy, who's back now as an uncomfortably sexy anime cyborg. It's the fucking teeth, man. Also the eyes. They look like hentai parodies of themselves. A fight that, thanks to the power of CGI, actually doesn't look like a PowerPoint presentation for once, although it is kind of giving Family Guy Back to the Multiverse for the PlayStation 3.
I'll have to call you back.
When it's all over, Space Beth spares Phoenix Tammy and tells her to go be with her family, which she does in a post-credits scene, and that completely contradicts Bird Person's whole single dad arc since he came back, so I guess it's really not part of the main series timeline.
That is so confusing.
I have no idea why the
What are you
Wiki page says
doing?
it is, or why the show calls him Rick C-137. Seems like just using literally any different dimension code would have immediately
fine.
cleared up
Yeah.
all these apparent contradictions and questions. Not to say Sano can't do whatever he wants with the story he's telling and whatever plot elements from the main series he wants to incorporate into it. I don't want to be some Szechuan sauce swilling comic book guy canon nitpicker over here, and the original creators did give him their explicit blessing to interpret things his own way. I just think, anything that might have made this story even a bit less confusing would have been a huge improvement. And as proof of that, the show does kind of improve in episode 4, which tells a much less confusing story. It still jumps all over the place, with Rick turning into a sad Japanese businessman barfly version of himself one minute and the prisoner on death row the next, but once it clicks that those are all the same Rick phasing into different versions of reality as he navigates the wormhole, it's easy enough to follow and even appreciate the exploration of his character from all those different angles to an extent, though I don't know if it entirely tracks that refusing to acknowledge the existence of Morty's alien anime girlfriend is what's keeping him trapped there. And I'm also not sold on the whole family gathering together for celebratory selfies when they get back either. It just doesn't seem like something the Smiths would do.
No, not at all. That seems so strange. Rick would not take the time to take selfies with the family like that. Like, no. It's all about the adventure, being in the moment.
Though ignoring Jerry when he gets himself into trouble certainly does. Hey, future Jeff here. Apparently, episode 5 is a continuation of the extremely minor Yakuza subplot from the Rick and Morty versus Genocider short, and also just that specific episode is an actual Memento-style memory f***ery plot that doesn't involve any kind of time travel, unlike the rest of the anime, but is still told in nonlinear order. So getting less confusing does not seem to be like an ongoing trend in this anime, just a minor aberration in episode 4. Just thought you guys should know that. I'll let past Jeff pick up from here. Also, in case the selfie thing didn't give it away, the humor has not improved one iota this episode. The whole mullet Rick flashback B-plot hinges on the most basic conceivable version of the drug cartel but they smuggle fried chicken joke that South Park did over
so
a
funny,
decade ago. Though at least we do get a bit more backstory on that bug fascist Yowie subplot.
Look, all I'm saying is we always go to my room. Why can't it be yours sometimes?
You think I'm hiding something?
Don't twist my words like that.
Riveting stuff. I know it sounds like I'm joking when I say that, and mostly I am, but these two dudes with
Would be interesting to see what the actual resolve is like at the end or something, I suppose.
their relationship problems give you more reason to care about their problems and them just by being upfront about what the problems are than just about any other character in this anime. Everything that both Ricks, the alien chick, and Space Morty have going on, what they want, what's at stake if they do or don't get it, is framed as part of the mystery, which leaves basically no hooks exposed to actually draw you into that mystery in the first place. The anime kind of just assumes you'll already be invested because you care about the cartoon, and in theory that's not the worst idea, but in practice the versions of the cartoon characters that more than half of the plot hinges on are totally new entities, and the ones that we're supposed to be familiar with don't really act like themselves
At all.
We have no idea what Space Beth's goals are besides
It would have made it a hell of a lot more interesting if it was based on a completely different, like, universal version of Rick and the family in that, but for them to say it's the same is just so strange.
Like Federation, regular Beth just kind of hangs out at home while the family does stuff and doesn't even get drunk. Summer's just Rick's guy in the chair, and Jerry's only defining character trait is shitting a lot. But maybe the most jarring mischaracterization of all is Rick himself. Cartoon Rick is detached from the world around him and the people who care about him in a tragicomic, distinctly depressing sort of way, acting above it all while using his unfathomably vast intellect to indulge in his lowest impulses and most base desires, desperate for distraction from the pain of existing in a universe where almost everything objectively sucks, and he can prove it with math. Anime Rick seems more detached in the Buddhist sense, beyond it all, at peace with the uncaring universe, not just willfully numb to it. It's a subtle distinction, but a profound one that makes Rick seem less like himself and more like the robot version of himself he built to love his family for him while he was busy obsessively pursuing revenge in season 6. And while that does make for a much more likable take on the character, it's also a far less funny one, which is why the original show used that twist to reset Rick after it was done exploring how the rest of the family might respond to a 22% more loving version of him. But that raises an important question, which really gets to the heart of whether or not this anime can work at all. Does Rick and Morty need to be funny? Or can it still work if it takes itself and its characters 100% seriously and embraces sincerity over sardonic satire?
Oh, I see. So I think that's interesting. I think Rick and Morty does have the potential to be straight up serious. Like, so I think where this anime is falling is that it's trying to be funny at the same time, whereas it should have just stuck with the more serious tone that it has.
I mean, to be fair, some of the original show's most widely acclaimed moments are the bits where real emotion breaks through the many layers of irony. The characters
are the most memorable
confront
bits
themselves and permanently grow, and the continuity pays off after years of setup. But then, part of why those moments have the impact they do in the cartoon is because they're such a rare departure from the adult cartoon sitcom formula. And while I want to say that art doesn't need to be anything besides what the artist wanted to make, when you're talking about a spin-off of a massive franchise with millions of fans who expect a certain kind of thing from it, you kind of have to deliver enough of that thing to keep them satiated, or at least make sure whatever new thing you're doing is so awesome that they forget what's missing before getting bored and tuning out. Especially if that spin-off relies so heavily on prior knowledge of the material that you have basically zero chance of grabbing any new fans. Like, I don't know how to feel about Morty being an unambiguous, unironic action badass. Usually in the cartoon, that's a sign of him working through some shit, you know?
Okay, buddy. All right, that's it. Good job. Time to go home.
But it would probably be a lot easier to swallow if the action actually was badass and didn't just alternate between being mediocre and happening mostly off-screen. I generally enjoy watching passionate auteurs bring their uncompromised vision for art I like to life, even if that vision is very different from mine. After going through quite a few of these things in my time, I've come to realize that's almost always preferable to a safe copy-paste job of the thing I already have to fill the corporate coffers, which is why I've really come around on Riverdale over the years. But when that vision ends up being compromised anyway by external forces like the budget or studio meddling or behind-the-scenes production drama, well, then you just find yourself feeling disappointed, both as a fan of the original thing and as someone curious to give the new thing a shot. And even if Takashi Sano does have some big revelation waiting on the back burner that ties this crazy jumble of a plot together into something satisfying and coherent, unless it's some 12 out of 10 mind blower of a twist that elevates the script to the point it makes up for everything else, I know I'm still going to be left with that bittersweet taste in my mouth. And even if he does pull that long shot off, which is possible, dropping you into the deep end in medias res before dragging you back to the shallows to explain how shit really works is a pretty standard playbook for mind-f***y time travel anime, and he did do a really good job with Tower of God. To be frank, I don't know if that will actually satisfy most Rick and Morty fans, even if they do stick with the anime. The real reason Rick doesn't f*** with time travel has nothing to do with the despair of being unable to undo the effects of the Omega device or any past/future run-ins he may have had or prevented himself from having with the 4D testicle cops. It's because time travel stories are inherently fiddly and confusing, even when they do make sense, and trying to make sense of them often takes a lot of effort on the viewer's part, which, when you walk away from that still feeling confused, completely contravenes Rick and Morty's greatest strength as a comedy: its ability to make the viewer feel smart. The whole "you have to have a super high IQ to appreciate Rick and Morty" meme became a meme in the first place because obviously you don't.
No,
it's an adult animated sitcom that was wildly successful in America. The writers are clearly smart. Harmon might be a goddamn genius, but instead of writing to show off how smart they are and impress critics and other smart people, they've figured out how to condense and, in some cases, distort big, intimidating, existential, and scientific ideas into a concise, digestible 24-minute format that anyone can understand and, most importantly, laugh at.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Come watch TV.
You don't corner the novelty bong market and reinvent how McDonald's does limited run menu items with a TV show made exclusively for Primer understanders.
No.
And as it stands, even as someone who likes Primer and Memento and Bakano and Higurashi and Tatami Galaxy and
so
the Zero
good.
Escape games, and generally f***s with time loops and nonlinear plots and dreamlike uncertainty in the media I consume, I'm struggling to enjoy this thing. Because, again, the show doesn't just bury the truth of what's going on in its crazy jumble of interdimensional timelines, it buries any motivation a viewer might have to care about unjumbling them in the first place. I'm here doing it, rewatching the series in 2 languages to piece this puzzle together, because it's literally my job.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't reach any satisfying aha moments in that journey, but I also get those moments sometimes when I'm picking apart my channel analytics, and I wouldn't exactly recommend that as a recreational activity. As it stands, trying to understand and appreciate Rick and Morty the anime feels like work. It's a challenging show, but not the refined, carefully tuned sort of challenge that makes you actually want to conquer it with a clear promise of a satisfying reward at the end, like a good Souls game, or a good Souls game. It's more akin to one of those interesting but deeply flawed indie Souls-likes that make Iron Pineapple say, "Keep working on it, devs. You've got something cool here," where the stank of janky technical failings and weird execution is going to turn 99% of players away before they sniff what it really has cooking. At the end of the day, I can't bring myself to hate Rick and Morty the anime, but I also can't bring myself to like it, let alone recommend it, because on a fundamental level, it's just not very well made. I'm probably going to keep going to the end just to see where Sano's going with it, because he does have me genuinely curious, but I can't blame anyone who doesn't want to stick with it or give it a try in the first place. For those of you who at least want to know how it all shakes out, though, I will be reporting back with my findings when it's all said and done, most likely on our second channel, Basement Life, unless this video's a big enough hit to justify double dipping, of course. In the meanwhile, if you're looking for an actually good anime adaptation of a Western sci-fi property, Terminator Zero turned out to surprisingly hard, and I put out a whole video on that last
good video.
week. And if you want an existentially horrifying dark sci-fi comedy that'll actually scratch your Rick and Morty itch, I don't have a video on it yet, but Dead Demons Dead Destruction is a fucking masterpiece, quite possibly anime of the year, and everyone needs to stop sleeping on it at their earliest convenience.
Whoa.
I'm Pickle Jeff, professional Rick Bag, signing out from anywhere but therapy.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard anything but negativity and questions and whys. And as soon as he said that it's meant to be set within the same bloody universe as like the Rick and Morty cartoon, it's like, oh, they could have easily fixed a lot of the problems from what I'm gathering by just going, right, this is an alternative universe we're focusing on, and then go from there. It's just different tellings of, you know, very strange. Anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch Patreon-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series. Links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? But guys, give this, click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys next time.